What's something you've only seen once in real life that you don't think you'll ever see again? In Australia a few years ago, there was a dust storm that made pretty much everything outside a dark orange. The sunrise in the morning was a dark red, and I seriously considered it was the apocalypse until I saw dust-covered cars. It was apparently the worst in 70-ish years. It was a beautiful sight I may never see again. In India, I was waiting in a taxi outside a convenience store for my mum to finish her shopping, and I saw the guy come out of the store with a bottle of mango juice in his hand. He looked around to see that he wasn't being observed and then poured all the juice inside the fuel tank of a parked motorcycle nearby. He then left, cackling to himself. 2 miniature dachshunds chasing emus, yes more than one, all over the fields and finally cornering them and causing one to jump over a 5-foot fence in terror. Was hard to stop laughing long enough to call the dogs off. 300,000 Europeans chanting "Tear down the wall" at the end of the Wall concert in Berlin 1990 between when the wall came down and reunification. Never been hugged by so many people I couldn't understand ever. Being born in '82, I was still young when this happened, but somehow the event still managed to be ingrained into my brain as a momentous occasion. Shame I hadn't discovered Pink Floyd back then. Saw two identical mid-80s Chevrolets park outside a 7-Eleven within a few minutes of each other. When the two owners of the cars came outside, they each went to the wrong car and spent a good 30 seconds wondering why their keys suddenly didn't work. You have lived, my friend. I once saw a kid who was about 10 years old pushing a pram down the street whilst riding a unicycle. Oh, and I once saw a seagull fly straight into a lamppost. Haha, that last one made me laugh out loud at work. I'd pay to see that. Poor bird though. Not 5 minutes after I got kicked out of swim practice due to a thunderstorm, I got to see one of the lampposts by the pool get struck by lightning. Everyone changing in the locker rooms thought it was a gunshot. I was driving down a 5-lane road on my way to work, 2 lanes in either direction and a turning lane. I turned a bend in the road and saw 2 cars in the turning lane that had hit each other, possibly seconds before I showed up. People were running away from both of the cars to either side of the road. There was a lot of smoke coming out of one. 30 seconds later one of them exploded. Only time I've ever seen a car explode in real life, and I was a few hundred feet away. While rock climbing, I saw the guy free soloing the cliff. He was about 100 feet up when he fell. He somehow spun mid-fall and grabbed a branch from the only tree growing on the cliff. The tree bent with his weight and deposited him on a ledge. He lit a cigarette and down climbed. Free soloers are madmen. Fell 30 feet down between a mountain and a glacier. Saw the underside of melted back glacier that, probably, nobody had ever seen. Looked down into the abyss below. Climbed back out. I was with a group of 13-14 year olds. I was the camp counselor. There was another counselor with us. It was a slow incline up a glacier that was over a lake. We were there as July, so it was fun to play and snow, but eventually we got bored and climbed the glacier. I wasn't planning on going to the top, but I got in a zone and started just busting up there. Made it before everyone else by a long time. I looked at the crack between the mountainside and the glacier. It was about 6 feet wide. The gap was melting back. I thought to myself, better not let the kids get this close to the top. It is dangerous and they could fall or something. Before I ran down to stop them, I decided to take a small break as they were still only halfway up the side of the glacier. I sat facing the lake, on top of a glacier in the Olympic Mountains in Washington state. The blue sky went on forever, and the lake below reflected the glory of the heavens above. I had never. Crack. The spot I was sitting on fell out beneath me. I spun and smacked the mountainside with my palm and forearm so my face didn't get punched with a mountain. Then I landed. All this happened without thinking or time to even be aware of what was going on a small outcropping cliff jutting from the mountainside. I stood up and checked my head, my face, my bones. I was okay. Landed in a perfect freak fall. Started yelling like crazy for the other counselor to make sure the kid stayed way back. Eventually he came and looked down. It was a bit of an oh crap moment to say the least, but we both had our priorities straight, so he went back to the kids and made sure everyone was way far back. He didn't tell them I fell, but came back for a second, asked how I was going to get out. By this time I had run through several scenarios involving helicopters and rescue teams. That all sounded really embarrassing. So I started looking for handholds and other little outcroppings. It was calm and peaceful. It was quiet and beautiful. Everything glowed blue. Beneath me was a dark blue crack into the ancient cave of ice dragons. Or at least a gaping chasm of death that surely should have left me trapped hundreds of feet below the ice with my bones broken and my brain leaking out. That kind of motivation is really great for climbing mountainsides, so I climbed out. It was pretty scary, but I didn't realize it was scary until after I was out and safe. I guess if I had panicked, I would still be down there, just chillin', being a dead popsicle. Holy crap, that's one of the most amazing things here. A few years ago when I was in high school, we used to play ninja tag out in the woods at night. On this particular night, the fireflies had started to spawn. There were millions of them. The entire woods looked exactly like the scene from Avatar. I live in Michigan, so it was kind of uncommon to see so many fireflies. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. TLDR, the firefly scene from Avatar IRL. Ninja tag is basically just you run around when it's pitch black, and there are airsoft guns for the people that aren't the ninjas, and you try to get them without getting shot. It's basically just exactly what it sounds like. Try to be sneaky. I live in New Zealand and have never seen a firefly, so this sounds incredible. Only a few nights ago, the most brilliant meteor ever passed over the San Francisco Bay Area, and my roommate and I were out on our backyard. This wasn't a shooting star. It was a giant glowing fireball way brighter than the full moon, and it cast shadows in our yard as it passed overhead. I'm from the Bay. I was so upset I wasn't there to see it. Back in March 2010, I took a mountain hike with my grandfather to look at a volcanic eruption up close. The trek was long and hard. It was cold, something like -10°C, and dangerous if you didn't watch your step. But I finally got up there, and lo and behold, I saw lava fall. Yeah, that's like a waterfall, except it's lava. It was beyond glorious. And don't even get me started on the red pillars of magma that the volcano farted out some 100 or 200 meters upwards pretty much constantly. It was completely indescribable. About a month afterwards, that same volcano returned to freak up air traffic in Europe and annoy reporters worldwide. Geological. The most majestic natural disaster that sounds like it was named by someone who repeatedly banged their head on the keyboard. I've seen my best friend, her mom, her maternal grandma, and her maternal great-grandmother conversing in the same room. Definitely not as traumatic as some of the other comments on here, but I highly doubt I'll see something like this again, considering how direct the line was. As for strange, I saw a woman reading a book on the back of a motorcycle once. Pages flopping everywhere. When my cousin was born, our family managed to get a photo with 5 generations in it. Pretty amazing when you think about it. When I was a kid, the family and I went on a holiday to Africa. While sitting on the roof of the Land Rover, we saw a leopard kill an antelope. I don't think I'll ever see something so majestic and peaceful again. The leopard grabbed the antelope by the throat and it seemed to accept that it was its time. No blood, and hardly a struggle. Amazing. Similar to the one I posted. Africa Safari. Saw 2 lions take down a wildebeest. So raw. Primal. Incredible. My friend was grabbing a CD case from a table. He drops the case, and it lands on its side, and remains upright. To this day I still can't believe it happened. I once flipped a nickel and it landed on its side. 50-50 my butt. Worked at a land center a few years back. It was in a shopping strip area near a large intersection. While outside getting a soda from one of the machines, I heard a loud screech and smash, and I turned back. There was a white smaller passenger vehicle, small 4-door mid-90s Chevy, popping out from underneath a lifted Dodge Ram. The car had hit the Ram. Found out later at something around 100-110 mph. The Ram was slowing down for the red light. After the car hit the rear of the truck, they both slid forward, causing the Dodge to hit a car in front of it, and letting the small white car pop out from underneath and rear-end another car in a different lane. After those hits, A couple of the cars did a domino kind of thing and caused like 9 cars in 3 lanes to be involved. I immediately ran to help, starting from the crosswalk light area. First car, fine, barely touched his bumper. Second car, a bit shaken up but the driver was alright. Third car, the one that was hit by the white Chevy after it came out from under the Dodge. The driver had already gotten out to see if the person in the white Chevy was alright. He was walking back to his vehicle with a face as pale as a ghost. Fourth car, white Chevy, cause of entire accident. The top had sheared off as it hit the Dodge. The driver's seat was shoved back into recline, and the body was in the seat without a head. From what I could make, my guess was most of the head was the blood and hair and parts in the rear of the vehicle, but I'm pretty sure some of it was still under the Dodge Ram. Another man that arrived to assist and myself made sure no one came near that vehicle until EMS arrived. The Dodge Ram buckled under the impact, and the passenger had to be taken to the hospital for back pain. I've seen videos of people decapitated, but this was pretty crazy different. Don't think I'll see something like that again. At least I hope not. Also, it turns out they believed the driver of the white Chevy was a man in his late 50s. Possible stroke or ailment that caused lack of consciousness and passed out on the gas pedal. TLDR. Decapitated body and cheap soda machines. A plane flying into the World Trade Center. Live. While the possibility of it recurring is certainly possible, I doubt I'll ever catch it live. I saw it live on TV. I was 6. That's staying with me. I must have been 7, nearly 8. When I was around 10 or 11, my mum and I had gone out for a walk one evening after a snowfall in Manchester. The clouds had gone and the moon was full and shining very brightly. Our path took us alongside a golf course. As we passed a large open part of it, we noticed 2 foxes playing and wrestling with each other in the fresh snow, under the bright moonlight. It was a beautiful scene that will stick with me forever. They were freaking. Okay, so I saw this rat in my house, so I grabbed a broom, began to chase. It started running towards my front door and I thought, awesome, this is going to be easy. At the last second it made a sharp turn and bolted up my stairs. However, when the rat made the sharp turn, something happened. It gave birth to 2 rats. I stopped in my tracks and was absolutely dumbfounded as to what I should next. I am willing to bet I never see that again. Actually, the rat probably casted mirror image. You are very lucky you only had a low-level mage rat on your hands. I watched a man die in a waiting room at a family physician's office. He collapsed after returning from the bathroom. The physician kept saying no, why she was unable to resuscitate him. I was there for a nasal allergy spray refill. A stark naked man ran past a library full of people at top speed. I was the only one who noticed and thus, the only one laughing. Also, the wall live, and being on the films of Star Wars. Also, the wall live. I am so incredibly jealous right now. In college I saw a stripper pee on the chest of a guy heading off to Iraq. Both mutually agreed to it. Happened in front of about 30 people, including his girlfriend, who started crying seconds afterwards. We all cheered. Go University of Wisconsin. We were all S-faced. If that helps for anyone that doesn't understand how this could happen. What the frick? 4 magpies are in my next door neighbor's garden, in a close-knit square, seemingly having a social occasion of some kind. Eating a few breadcrumbs was strange. It got stranger as 2 seagulls suddenly landed in between them. Then an awkward silence ensues for a few seconds and suddenly one of the seagulls moves slightly, and the magpies flip their crap and start squawking some incredible battle cry of a squawk beating the ever-loving crap out of the seagulls. The fight lasted like 3 minutes and the seagulls flew away. The magpies then returned to their square. Needless to say, I was revising and bored in the upstairs bedroom of my house, and this made my day and revsion worth it. Doubt I'll see that crap again. Shoulder filmed it. TLDR. Watched some magpies beat the crap out of some seagulls. Those seagulls flew into the wrong neighborhood. A couple of decades ago, I saw the head of security of a large casino engage in a rather vicious food fight with 9 drifter kids in the casino buffet. I was one of the drifter kids. Ocean's 10. While vacationing in Cancun, I saw a woman lose 2.5 fingers when she stuck her hand in a tiger cage. The cage looked like a jail cell with chicken wire up to about chin level to keep little ones from becoming snacks. Apparently, she was too drunk to notice the 1. Hands off signs, 2. Chicken wire, and 3. People screaming not to touch the freaking tiger. I still remember being so shocked that anyone would do anything that mind-numbingly stupid that I completely froze up. The worst part about the whole thing was the crunch of the tiger's jaws and all the chick's finger bones, followed by about 5 seconds of complete dead silence as people processed what had happened. It took 3 guys to get her away from the cage. Her husband, my dad's best friend since high school, and the caretaker that had just spent 5 minutes telling her not to get too close. We saw the same lady at the airport on our way home, and her hand was wrapped from what's left of her fingers to her elbow. She looked high as a kite, so at least they had her on some of the good stuff, though it could have been a mix of alcoholism and recent severe blood loss. At least for the rest of her life, when people ask what happened to her fingers, she'll be able to say a tiger ate them. I was in the back of my dad's car going along the motorway about 3 car lengths behind and 1 lane over from a Land Rover towing a van. A sort of kebab van or a burger van. You know the type, when the van started fishtailing side to side so much that it swung 90 degrees around so it was traveling horizontally down the road. Obviously it couldn't do this for more than a split second, so it flipped and rolled, taking the Land Rover with it rolling. They both eventually stop after about 4 or 5 rolls, and my dad pulled onto the hard shoulder and told me and brother, I was about 10 and he about 8 at the time, to stay in the car as he went over to help. He came back a few minutes later slightly shook but relieved because nobody had been injured somehow. He said a 15-year-old kid was crying from the shock, but that was the worst of it. He also mentioned that running up to car was scary because he didn't know what he was about to see. That's disgusting. I saw a tire come loose off a big trailer going down I-90 over Snoqualmie Pass. They were traveling 70 mph plus, so the tire flew probably 30-40 feet in the air hauling butt, and the sparks coming off the axle was unimaginable. I was on Sea to Sky headed back to Tacoma from Whistler when I started to fall asleep at the wheel and woke up about to slam into a semi while going downhill. It was freaking awful. In the Peace Corps I saw 2 donkeys fighting. They both had the other's tail in their mouth and were biting pretty hard while growling at each other. This circle standoff lasted well over 5 minutes. I remember thinking Africa. My family was driving back from vacation in South Carolina. While on the highway I hear my dad say, "Holy crap." I look up and there is a car in the air. It was going the opposite direction and drifted too close to the median. It went down the small hill in the median, hit the guardrail in between the 2 roads, and did 2 flips in the air. Well, technically barrel rolls. It landed on our lane, the closest to the median, and marked. Everyone was okay and there wasn't even a scratch on the car. Probably fricked up the suspension pretty good. Driving along and I look into a paddock next to the road and see a young woman taking it from a horse. What the actual frick? OMG, the exact same thing happened to me once. Except I wasn't driving, I was in the passenger seat and it wasn't a paddock, it was my iPhone. 2 hot college girls making out and fingerlisting each other in between the first and second set of doors to the dorm hall. Glass doors. It was about 1 AM and I was drunkenly walking back to my own dorm hall. I did a double take. I was like, wait, this crap happens in real life, and yes, I stood and watched for a few minutes. I love that you used fingerlist. It's such a funny word. A puppy being run over at 40 miles an hour. The car didn't stop. The owner, my neighbor, came out and stood in the middle of the street screaming, "This was my baby. This was my baby," while bawling her eyes out. I've seen humans die, and I gotta say, this was definitely more traumatic. The people I saw pass away were in a hospital, and code blues were called. I guess if I saw them get smashed into by cars, I'd be much more traumatized. But geez, oh man, when the family comes in after the patient's passed, sadness doesn't even begin to describe it. For this to be relevant, you need to know I'm interested in aircrafts. One ordinary afternoon last summer I heard a very familiar noise outside the window. I knew I'd heard it numerous times before at various air shows and thought, no, It can't be full of excitement. I ran outside to discover that I actually heard right. Overhead a World War II Spitfire passed by like nothing. I was amazed. Quite special indeed to see something that rare, totally unprepared at a totally unexpected occasion. To give some perspective, there are only 2 Spitfires flying in Sweden and none is based at any airfield nearby me. Cicada several years back. I know it happens every 17 years, but my parents said this was the worst they'd ever seen in their 50+ years of life. My friends and I treated it like the zombie apocalypse. We planned when we went outside, from our route through the hordes to our plan of attack for getting them off of doors. We used to carry airsoft guns and stand in front of cars covered in them, spraying them with electric airsoft fire and cackling like madmen. When the batteries had drained and the CO2 cartridges had emptied, we paused, gunned still, smoking, and observed the carnage we had created. Exhausted, we stumbled indoors to drown the horrors we'd witnessed in Capri Sun. We were not but mere boys. We were warriors. Actually, there are both 7 and 13 year cicadas. They came out in the same year, which is why there were so many. Took the number 55 bus from East London to Central London one day only to find 2 black albino men sitting far apart from each other. Within minutes 2 more got on, again not acknowledging any of the others. There were under 10 people on the bus in total. Must have been a super niche convention happening in Central London. More of a hoping I'll never see again. A drunk shooting his buddy at point blank and a thug beating. More of hammering the guy with a wrench of some sort. A lifeless person on the side of a busy road. This happened all in one night. On the lighter side, our spasadics. Rolling out a joint at college with a couple friends. Suddenly I realize I have no paper. A friend of mine realizes too, so he gets his rolling paper out to hand me one. As he opens the paper box, the first rolling paper flies, because of a slight breeze, straight to my hand. It was magical. Something like this happened to me once, except the magical breeze let the weed fly from my joint straight to the ground. Long time lurker. First time poster. A couple years back my friends and I got very high and were just hanging out, shooting the breeze. You know, one friend was sitting in an armchair and across the room another friend sat on a couch with a big ol' bag of tasty as frick red skins. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, armchair friend looks up in a red-eyed haze to couch friend and manages to grunt, "Hey there guy, chuck me some of them they're delicious red skins." Couch friend immediately takes him up on this and, with no intention of getting the sweet treat to armchair friend in a polite fashion, biffs that godly candy snack with reasonable vigor across the room. Being high, armchair friend doesn't have any time to react, and we all watch as the red skin makes a beeline for him. It follows a graceful arc through the air and lands right in between armchair friend's index and middle fingers, like a freaking delicious ninja star. There is a 2-second silence which felt like an age, and then the room exploded. Everyone was screaming and running away, jumping on the furniture, howling at the ceiling. Armchair friend was completely paralyzed, screaming at the top of his lungs. The look of terrified exultation in his face said it all. He didn't move for a good 10 minutes, and then he ate the frick out of his well-earned prize. Whenever I'm down, I think back on that moment and remember life is good. I was in the jungle of Borneo and was looking for orangutans. I heard a noise and upon turning around I noticed a troop of proboscis monkeys a few meters away. As they began honking rather loudly, one of them gave birth. Crazy crap, let me tell you. This was the day after a mock-out pee on me, so equally as weird. Sitting in my university computing lab next to a window with a large bee flying into the window again and again. Suddenly out the corner of my eye a hawk, or similar looking bird, swoops in and grabs the bee on the window ledge, eating it while sitting there. Probably not that spectacular, but not something I see every day. I was working in the personal residence of a sitting president of the United States. Normally every minute I was in the house I was shadowed by a Secret Service officer. This time I had told him I was going to the kitchen to find some sugar. He didn't bother to follow me. I rummaged through the kitchen cabinets. They contained the kind of stuff we all have in our kitchen cabinets, except for one cabinet. That cabinet had a stack of napkins. The napkins were embossed in gold with the presidential seal. I was walking down the road, at the crest of a hill. A big mean dog came charging at me from the driveway on the other side of the road. Just as he got to the end of the driveway, a car crested the hill and ran him over, saving me from dog attack. I've told that story on the internet a few times but not in real life. It just sounds too good to be true. I'm sure I'll never see that again. I have several. First, the things I hope to never see again. My brother's best friend shot himself in the face with a shotgun and I found him like that. Still alive, but no face. To see that gore in person and smell it was just awful. In New York, a man threw himself in front of the subway, 20 featuring from me. He screamed before impact, my uncle having a seizure, and no one in my family would help me stop him from beating his head into rough concrete because he has hepatitis. Them looking on, disgusted at him, haunts me. Then there's something that I thought I would never see again, but for some reason see every year. I was driving across town one day, and our town is separated by a river. It was autumn, but still very warm out at night. As I drove over the bridge, there was a massive swarm of moths. At first though, it appeared to be a sudden, heavy snowstorm. I became so frightened by this, not knowing it was just moths, that I prayed, despite not being religious. I thought it was the end of the world. I had never seen so many bugs like that, but now I see the same thing every year at night, only for one night at a time. Ambulances doing donuts in a snow-covered parking lot. It was hugely irresponsible and freaking hilarious. I may or may not have been in one of them. Not me, but my mother said she was driving behind a car once crossing the intersection, then all of a sudden this motorcycle crossing the other way of the intersection hits the car in front of her doing about 50-60 miles per hour, causing the motorcyclist to do a double front flip over the car and land on his feet. She said it took a second for him to process what happened, but then he started to jump for joy, thankful to be alive. It's still early, so forgive me if my grammar is off. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.